Hi all. Finland Azure User Group Virtual Azure Tips and Tricks Extravaganza to the Max 2020 is here. Welcome. FAUG is about continuous learning and the community around cloud computing and Microsoft Azure. We have over 1,600 members and we organize over 10 events yearly, virtually and in person, of which the largest example is IgluConf, held every January. Virtual Azure Tips and Tricks is a year-long event during which we present several about 30-minute talks about various topics by various presenters. Please tune in to our meetup site to view the upcoming presentations and to our YouTube channel to view the previous presentations. Thank you for joining us and stay safe.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to yet another Finland Azure User Group's Virtual Tricks and Tips session. Today we are going to talk a little bit about the Azure Bastion service, and this is most certainly going to be a quick one. So, my name is Jukka Loikkanen. I work as an Azure Cloud Architect at Nordcloud. Been there for nearly 2 years now, and of course I'm helping customers throughout their cloud journey to do everything on Azure. And Nordcloud is a company based in Finland, and we have local presence in 10 countries in Europe with over 400 cloud experts and with a bunch of certifications. And we work with all major clouds, AWS, Azure and GCP. Then let's get into the day's topic. So what is Azure Bastion service? I think most of you may have heard about Azure Bastion service, but in a nutshell, it is Microsoft's platform as a service that allows you to connect your Azure VMs via Azure portal with no additional software, no agents, no clients, no nothing. So this means that you can just log in to Azure portal, navigate to your VM and then hit connect, and then connect with your username and password through Azure Bastion. How is this then? What is the advance of this approach? Well, the one thing is that your RDP connections never leave your virtual network, and this goes by so that you are first connecting via HTTPS 443 to Azure portal, Azure Bastion host, and then Azure Bastion host which is within your VNet is doing the actual RDP or SSH connection towards your virtual machine. And just this week we learned that one of the most wanted features of Azure Bastion, which is a possibility to use one Azure Bastion over VNet peering, that is now in public preview, so that can be used. So maybe the most traditional things that how you connect to your VMs may look like this, so that you take an RDP or SSH connection to your Bastion VM, which resides in your VNet, and then from there you connect to your virtual machines that are then not having maybe a public IP or exposed to any VPNs or stuff like that. But in here we are replacing this, and when we put an Azure Bastion service in place. So the setup starts to look like this. So in this case, the user connects first to Azure Portal, and then from Azure Portal, the connection is taken via SSL to Azure Bastion host, which then connects the RDP or SSH session with your VMs. Then let's go and see how this looks like in the portal itself. Okay, so first let me go into the resource group. So in here we have a bunch of resources, bunch of VMs and stuff like that. Actually, I tried to make a demo about the VNet peering, but I of course got into some demo issues and I wasn't able to get it working for some strange reason that I couldn't figure out in prior to this presentation, unfortunately. So basically, we have an Azure Bastion service here. This is nothing much to show here. And this is residing in our presentation VNet 01 in Azure Bastion subnet. And this is something that you need to take into account, that Azure Bastion needs its own subnet named Azure Bastion subnet, and it needs to be at least -27 if you create it after you create the VNet. But if you create it with your VNet deployment, then it wants to have /26. This is something I marked just today when I was setting up this demo. Let's head back, and then it doesn't require NSG by default, the Azure Bastion service, but if you want, and of course I suggest you to do so, want to create an NSG for it, that also needs to have a certain rules inside it. Otherwise, it won't be accepted by the Azure Bastion subnet. And this is a fairly quick one. So the things you need to have there is you need to allow HTTPS inbound from internet to here, and then you need to allow gateway manager inbound. And then a few other things that you need to do is allow SSH and AirDB outbounds to virtual network, and then Azure Cloud outbound also to port 443. And this is, as I said, done so that if you don't have the necessary rules inside your NSG, the subnet won't take the NSG at all. And then the connections. So basically here I have a basic VM attached in the same VNet as the Bastion host itself, and of course inside its own subnet. But how do we connect to this? So we hit connect, we hit Bastion, and then if we use Bastion, it states us that what bastion are we using, and then we should be able to connect just by typing in our username and password here. So let's see if I experience a demo effect this time also, that I won't be able to connect to this one either. Yeah, this worked fine. So as you can see, we are now inside our virtual machine via Azure portal, and then of course you can just administrate and manage the stuff here. Let's get out of here. So this of course works with the Linux machines also. I should have one Linux machine here with Ubuntu, and with Linux we can also connect through Bastion service, and unlike the Windows one, when we are working with the Linux environment, we can also utilize SSH private key or here to log in. I'm now using just my password. So let's see if we can SSH into this machine. And yes, and here we are. And this works just as some, for example, if you are utilizing PuTTY or something like that. Right. Let's get out of there also. Then the connection itself doesn't want to work at this time, but I can still show you how this goes. So before, when if you hit this Bastion, use Bastion connection here, and you were in a different VNet than your actual Azure Bastion service, it prompted you to create one. But now it is actually stating right away that it's using the Azure Bastion 01, which is in another VNet. As you can see here, we are in a presentation VNet 1. Sorry, VNet 2 here, rather than the Azure Bastion VNet, which was the presentation VNet 01. So previously you needed to create all of the one Bastion host per VNet. So basically, if you had 10 VNets, you needed to have a 10 Bastion services, and if you had, for example, a hub and spoke network, that would have been quite a pain to set those up, and then also the costs could go quite high with a bunch of Azure Bastion services. But now, although this is only in public review as for now, but hopefully it will be generally available soon. So you could, for example, in hub and spoke model, you could utilize just one Azure Bastion service to connect every virtual machine within your VNets. So that's that. Then let's get back to the presentation. Okay, so the pricing of Azure Bastion service. Basically, it's billed per hour, but since it's a PaaS service and it's running there all the time waiting for your connections, so the pricing seems to be around 120 euros per month, and outbound data transfer is free up to 5 gigabits per month, and then it is a few cents per gigabit after that. And then some findings and conclusions of the Azure Bastion service. So first of all, what I consider is a good thing that you don't need to expose your VMs to the outside your VNet in any way, whether it would be a VPN or public IP, which is not recommended at any case, but you can have all the AirDP connections staying inside your VNet, and then connect to those VMs without any software, basically, that you just need a HTML5 browser and your Azure account to log into portal and then go forward from there. One thing also to mention that the minimum access that allows you to connect to the VM with Azure Bastion service is that the user has read access to the Azure Bastion service and read access to the VM and read access to the VM's NIC. So if user has those three, he will be able to connect to the VM. And this is also one thing that I consider is quite good, that you can limit the connections, the users that are able to connect to certain VMs by that. So basically, if you have some users or something that need to access only certain VMs or in certain subscriptions or certain resource group, or even just one VM in some cases, so that is quite easy to do. And then of course you take the leverage of the Azure security itself, that you have the multi-factor authentication and stuff like that on, so that that is secure to get into the Azure portal. So previously, one con that I listed here was that VNet peering wasn't supported, but now it is in public preview. So maybe that is a bit of a con still, since it's not GA. And then also one thing to note is that you can only copy paste text via clipboard, but there is no chance, at least for now, to drag and drop files or anything like that between the server and your own computer. So that is something that you may need to take into the consideration if you have need for that kind of stuff. Then also today I marked, when I tried set up the demo, was that there was a little bit of connection issues, that I was unable to connect via Azure Bastion service. This is something that I haven't experienced earlier, at least at this much, but I think it may be related to this public review thing now. So if they are doing something under the hood. Yeah. So as I said, this was fairly a quick one. If you have any questions or comments, you can post them in the chat and I can check them there. So if not, so then I thank you all for attending this. Hopefully you got something out of it, and have a good rest of the afternoon. Bye everyone.